Hi, this is Jamey, and today I'm going to talk about my favorite game mechanism in Abyss. Abyss is an older game. This might ring a bell if you haven't heard of it or haven't seen it in a while. It came out a few years ago. I just played it at Geekway a couple weekends ago, and I had a blast. This wasn't even on my radar at all. I'd heard good things. I'd seen the art before, but I hadn't played it, and I really, really enjoyed it. And there are a couple mechanisms that I'd like to discuss today. And before I go into that, you can't really see it here, but I'd highly recommend going to look at it on Board Game Geek or a video of it. You'll get the full rules, and you'll see the beautiful art and world building in the game. It's really, really beautiful, including these pearls. This is part of the game. This little cup and the pearls actually come with the game, so it's a really beautiful thematic component for an underwater game. That's my favorite component in the game. I'm going to try to start to say that more, my favorite, because I have a favorite component in every game too, not just mechanisms. So the first mechanism I wanted to talk about is one of the things that you can acquire in the game are these cards down here. I think they're called leaders or something like that. They give you points at the end of the game, but also almost all of them give you some kind of either one-time bonus or an engine building bonus, something that some benefit you gain from then on. But the game does something really clever with this because they let you build this engine, but the game wants to prevent any engine from being too powerful. So if at any time you have 3 of these leaders with, or if you have leaders that add up to a total of 3 tridents, there's a trident icon on most of these leaders, you gain a location tile that gives you a bunch of endgame victory points. But the tile is a long tile, and it actually covers up the abilities of, I'm not pointing there, it covers up the abilities of 3 of the leaders that had the trident on them. So I really like how the game lets you build this engine, but it kind of says, okay, for you to actually get a ton of points in the game, we're gonna make you pull back a little bit. We're gonna cut down that engine during the game by putting this location tile on top of the abilities to prevent you from using those abilities for the rest of the game. So you tend to build, at least, well, I can't really say, I've only played once, but I think in any given game of this, you tend to build 2 engines. You build one engine, then you cover that up, and then you build another engine and cover it up, which is actually kind of similar to the London 2nd edition that I played last year at Geekway and really enjoyed. I like that you built an engine, and then it stopped, and then you built another engine. I think that's pretty interesting. There's a little thing about tucking cards. I won't go into it here, but if you look at the rules videos, look at how you tuck the card resources into or behind the leaders when you make the leaders. It's a cool little mechanism. Too tough to describe here. But my favorite mechanism in Abyss is the closed economy of the pearls. There are a few different ways that you can get pearls in the game, but for the most part, it's a closed economy in that part of the board that you can't see here, that's off the photo, it's at the top of the board. On your turn, one of the things you can do on your turn is to reveal resource cards. I think they represent creatures or allies or something like that, but they're spent as resources, and they're little cards that show up. And every time you reveal a new card, you do an auction. And so you go around the table, and every player has the opportunity to bid some of their pearls to buy that card. And it's not really even a bid. The first player to acquire a card spends 1 pearl, and so they'll spend a pearl from their supply and they'll give it to you. The next player, if after you reveal another card, if another player wants it, the second player has to spend 2 pearls because the second player, third player, and so on. When it comes back to you, you don't have to spend anything, so you get the cards for free. But it's this closed economy that I really like, and I use the word auction. It's not really an auction because you're not really bidding or outbidding other players. But I love the closed economy of it. I love that the pearls are transferring between the players. And I realized that this is one of the things that makes me really love games like Isle of Skye and Castles of Mad King Ludwig, 2 of my favorite games ever. And it really reminded me of that, even though it wasn't a bidding or pricing mechanism like in those games, which I always kind of thought that was the part about those games that I really enjoyed, and I do. But I realized that it's the closed economy, the transfer of resources from one player to another, especially in a game where there's really only one resource, the pearls. That just adds such an interesting decision process to the game because I don't know, it's just because you're giving up your thing to give another player that they can spend later, and they might spend it on your thing. It's just a really, really cool system, and I'd love to do a video about closed economies like that in the future. I know the Estates has a closed economy as well. There's some auction games that have closed economies where the things you're exchanging aren't usually coming from a general supply but are being exchanged between players. The dynamic of that I find really, really interesting, and I love how that worked out in Abyss. If you have a different favorite mechanism in Abyss, or the same one you want to echo in the comments, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Or if you can think of any closed economy games, I'd love to do a Sunday sit-down video on them soon. So feel free to mention them in the comments too. All right, thanks.